Good evening and welcome to round 7 here in Mexico City for the Nations Cup. I am Chris Kavanagh, your host, and last time we were here there was quite a lot of chaos on track, lots of spins, chaos at the pit entries and pit exits, lots of retirements. It just seems to be the nature of the circuit, so being here a second time we could expect more of the same. And yeah, let's get into things, shall we, for this? And let's look at the standings before we go into any races. Firstly, with Division 2, we can see for the drivers, it is locked at the very top with Felix Rosenqvist of Sweden, with Felipe Nasr of Brazil on 94 points, with Roman De Angelis of Canada only 7 back on 87, Jose Maria Lopez for Argentina on 86. It is very close-necked at the very front there. And we can look further down the field that there's a lot of other names. Elfyn Evans on 62 points with some good results of late for Wales. And there are some drivers which would love to get some more points on the doors today. There's the two Ireland cars of Max Hart and Alex Dunn. Let's see what they can do here. And the Portuguese cars, especially Antonio Felix da Costa himself, needs to get something out of this round. And when it looks to the nation's standings, Argentina lead the way thanks to some very successful results of late on 124 points, and Sweden are on 121. It's a close fight, and the top 3, remember, get promoted to the next into Division 1 next season. But there's many races to come before any of that can come into conjecture, and if you see there, Canada and Brazil are locked on the 111 points in 3rd and 4th. But yeah, there's a lot of things could happen from here still, and especially here at a crazy circuit like Mexico City. We can see now for the first race of the day, the Division 2 sprint, and the country boy of Pato O'Ward in Mexico is starting on pole for the sprint, and then Antonio Felix da Costa of Portugal alongside him, Pietro Fittipaldi of Brazil in 3rd place, Stefan Riquelme for Monaco in 4th, Philippe Albuquerque in 5th, and Elfyn Evans of Wales in 6th, Ella Lloyd in 7th, Alto Leclerc in 8th, Antonio Giovinazzi for Italy in 9th, Raffaele Marcello in 10th, Jakub Spikowski in 11th place there for Poland, with Roman De Angelis in 12th, Max Hart 13th, Stefano Pandelin 14th, Felipe Nasr 15th, Jose Maria Lopez for Argentina in 16th, with Nico Veroni in 17th, Rafael Villa Gomez in 18th, with Felix Rosenqvist, the last champion, in 19th, and 20th with Alex Dunn, Nicholas Latifi in 21st, Kelvin van der Linde in 22nd, and Paul de Resta, first of Scotland, in 23rd, Roman Belinsky of Poland in 24th, Sandy Mitchell in 25th, and then Marcus Ericsson to round out the grid in 26th. And for the first race of the day, it is over to Ryan Ferris.
It's the first race of the day. It's Division 2 here at Mexico City, and it's the Mexican O'Ward on pole. Now, can he convert this into a race win? We'll find out after 18 laps. And it's go here. Good getaway there from O'Ward, but Da Costa looking to have a better second effect. No, it isn't. O'Ward gets a blinder. So O'Ward away there, 3 or 4 abreast coming down into turn 1. And down the inside comes Da Costa. So Da Costa getting the slipstream effect on O'Ward and goes through there. And there's some shenanigans going on in the background. There's yellow flags out. And it's Paul de Resta and one of the Team Ireland cars tangled up. Jose Maria Lopez finds himself out of the race. And Lopez getting squeezed in. Oh my goodness. Massive accident there. We need to have probably another look at another angle to see what exactly caused that. But Lopez going for a wild ride there. There's Alex Dunn's point of view, and it looks like the Team South Africa car slams into the back of De Resta, which sends De Resta flying into Lopez. And really, all 3 of these were a passenger after the incident caused by, I think that was Kelvin van der Linde. So there you see the South African car. Actually, no, I don't even think Kelvin van der Linde was involved, looking at that angle. So I'm assuming the incident will be under investigation, as it looks as though I'm not sure if De Resta's out or whether or not the 2 cars are just, De Resta is now retired. and Alex Dunn unable to really get going there, just caught up with the car. No further investigation, but back at the front it's Da Costa that leads from O'Ward, and Felipe Albuquerque is stalking O'Ward for that second position. So Team Portugal obviously getting the setup right. And down the inside comes Albuquerque. Can he go through? No, he can't. O'Ward slams the door as they come through the Perotada. Just behind that is Roman De Angelis in the Team Canada car. And Felipe Albuquerque now draws side by side with O'Ward. It looks as though he's taken the position as they come down to the S's one more time. The marshals have cleared up all the mess from lap 1. But now this is looking as though O'Ward is struggling quite a bit here. He's already instantly come under pressure from De Angelis. As you can see, De Angelis going for a move there down the inside, but not quite close enough. Further on back is Felix Rosenquist, who's stuck behind 2 Team Monaco cars. So he's there in 11th with Riquelme and Leclerc 9th and 10th. And around the S's we go, and you can really see differences in setup through the S's. Some teams going for a more straight line approach because of the long start-finish straight, one of the longest on the calendar, I think. And in the background, O'Ward's fighting back against Albuquerque. He's going to go down the inside again. They're side by side down the straight. Albuquerque just having a little bit more straight line speed by the looks of things over O'Ward. But can O'Ward get it done on the brakes into turn 1? And indeed he can. Further on back, De Angelis coming under pressure now from Elvin Evans. And Evans has got Fittipaldi, who's been passed actually by Evans. Further back, Lloyd now trying to have a go at Fittipaldi, but unable to get through. So a good showing once again by Team Wales. But hopefully they can last the 18. So Felipe Albuquerque needs to have a bit of a rethink, as Raffaele Marcello gets it all wrong. Going into the beginning of the S's there. That's going to put him under pressure now from Calvin van der Linde by the looks of things. And there's been another change of position, so Evans has now promoted himself in front of De Angelis. That's P4 for Evans. Giovinazzi sets the fastest lap of the race. There's a bit of a reshuffling going on in the background as Sheldon van der Linde passes Lloyd, but Lloyd gets van der Linde back. And Arthur Leclerc has gone in front of Fittipaldi, so Fittipaldi struggling in the early stages of this sprint race. Leclerc, after chatting with team manager Chris Cavaney, who's unsure on how well the team are going to go this weekend. Not quite the right setup, he feels, but as it stands at the moment, they're moving forward. And Calvin van der Linde has lost his gearbox. The dreaded Nations Cup gearbox has taken its first victim of the weekend, and that's a move, or attempt of a move, of Riquelme trying to get through on Fittipaldi, and that's really affected Riquelme's exit out of the Perotada, so he's going to come under quite considerable pressure now from Giovinazzi. Giovinazzi pulls alongside the Monegasque driver. You can see Rosenquist also jockeying for position, as we see Calvin van der Linde's car being towed away. But whilst all that's been going on, Albuquerque's overtaken O'Ward. So it's a Portuguese 1-2 at the moment, unless O'Ward can repass Albuquerque like he did before. And gradually making his way up onto the background as Smiakowski gets it all wrong there. He's got Latifi for company. So on board with Albuquerque. And he's actually dropped O'Ward, so I don't think he's going to be close enough to challenge into turn 1 this time around. But O'Ward coming under pressure now from Elvin Evans for 4th position. These three have really gapped DeAngelis in P5, as DeAngelis has found himself in a bit of a scrap there for that position between himself, Lloyd, Van der Linde, Leclerc. And as I say that, Lloyd goes through on DeAngelis into turn 1. So another position gained for Team Wales. They run 4th and 5th at the moment, but I think Evans is lining O'Ward up for that 3rd place. Further on back, you can see there Sheldon van der Linde and Arthur Leclerc very, very close to each other. And you can see there, Evans is all over the back of O'Ward. So Leclerc's just got to be patient here. But he's not going to. He's going to have a go down the inside into the Pirotada. And has that worked out? No, it hasn't. And a mistake there for Leclerc has now allowed the fast-charging Giovinazzi, who's been setting fastest lap after fastest lap. And it's an issue for Ella Lloyd. So Ella Lloyd, you can see just going off in the background there. As well as that's going on, Evans takes 3rd position away from O'Ward, and the Mexican fans will not be happy about that. But cheers for Team Wales. As one car retires, the other one goes up into a podium place. But now we have a squabble here as a result, and it was another transmission failure, as a result of Leclerc making a half committed, as Roman Belinsky is actually in pit lane at the moment, so he's had an issue. But that failed attempt on a move against DeAngelis has meant that Leclerc's dropped from 6th down to 8th. So we got absolutely mugged down the start-finish straight by Sheldon van der Linde and Giovinazzi. And Giovinazzi, as I was about to say, has been rapid so far in this race. He's set fastest lap after fastest lap, although his teammate Marcello has beat him to the fastest lap, I think, the last time around, and that's him there in 15th. So around the final corner one more time, and these laps are really ticking off, and they're going 3 abreast now down the start-finish straight. That's Max Hart there in 12th position. He's got Latifi on one side and Smiakowski on the other. Smiakowski coming out on top there as that. Latifi still battling away, and actually I think that was Rosenquist who took the 12th position there as well. So drama is just up front there. You can see Riquelme trying to find a way through, and Giovinazzi still having not much luck there. So Evans, as we look here, in 3rd position, trying to close up on Albuquerque, but Albuquerque's closing up on Da Costa at the moment. The gap now down to 7/10 of a second, or just under 8/10. And you can see there, Albuquerque definitely chasing and gradually bringing that gap down. He's going to be tucked up in the slipstream down the start-finish straight, but I don't think he's going to be close enough for a move. Meanwhile, here's Leclerc, who's got through on Giovinazzi, but now trying to find a way through on Sheldon van der Linde, and didn't learn from his mistake last time round. And now he finds himself in a battle with his own teammate, Giovinazzi's in there as well. Giovinazzi's now taken the position away from Leclerc, but at the same time, Riquelme takes the pair of them. So Riquelme going to have to try and gap Giovinazzi at the moment. Leclerc's going to have have a bit of a rethink, as essentially it's still Team Monaco in the exact same places, but each driver will swap around now. Here's Jakub Smirkowski in the final points paying position, ahead of Fittipaldi, who's just gone backwards so far in this race. But so far, under a little bit of pressure there from Fittipaldi. Further on back, you have Latifi, who's bringing Rosenqvist along with him. And here's Leclerc trying to have a go on Giovinazzi, which I don't think has worked out, and once again finds himself stuck in a bit of an uncomfortable situation. Actually, no, I think that was Riquelme actually trying to go through on Van der Linde, and that's now once again found himself in the position that his teammate was in, and Giovinazzi's gone up into 7th. Now Albuquerque, knowing that Evans is fastly approaching, with half the race completed so far, he's going to have to find a way through on his teammate. The gap now down to half a second, as Leclerc is tumbling down the order down to 13th. So what has happened there? He's still going down the order. He's spun. So he's spun out down... he's possibly lost it. We've seen it before. So he's gone through Delago, or he's just about gone through S. Delago, and then loses it on the exit. He's lost his front wing as well. So after having a fairly strong fight through the field, he's just dealt himself quite some considerable damage, and any chance of points have gone. But whilst all that was going on, Felipe Nasr has also retired. He's gone out with a transmission failure. And here we go, the battle for the lead is now back on. Da Costa now under pressure from Albuquerque as we cut to Marcello. I don't think we really need to be wanting to watch that. But whilst all this has been going on, Albuquerque is through on Da Costa. So can Da Costa respond? He's now got to either repass his teammate or fend off Evans, with 8 laps remaining of this race. So as you look back from Albuquerque's car to Da Costa, and as you can see, Da Costa not really able to stay with Albuquerque, although he's within half a second of his teammate, and then Evans is within half a second of him, although looking at that there, I think Evans was slightly wide going through the Peritada there, so he's dropping... he's not just wide, he's got an issue. And again, another gearbox gone. So all hopes of what I was saying was going to be a great performance, or was looking to be a good performance from Team Wales, and I think actually Evans' car was retiring, was hit by someone there. I did say they had to make the 18, and both cars failed, both with gearboxes. So Evans is out, and I think with the way this weekend is, I believe the gearboxes are a standard issue part here in the Nations Cup. So I think some team managers might be questioning the reliability of the components that are being supplied by the championship. But nevertheless, still plenty of action going on with only a few more laps remaining. Ward's made a mistake somewhere. He's dropped back massively to DaCosta. In fact, he's lost nearly 3.5 to 4 seconds to the back of DaCosta. Now he finds himself potentially going to be coming under pressure from De Angelis, and is that a lock-up or an engine blowout? It's an engine blowout for Albuquerque. And this is terrible news for Felipe Albuquerque. As he said, after putting all that effort to take the lead from his teammate, it's quite literally all gone up in smoke. But what is one person's loss is another one's gain, and that promotes the home nation hero of O'Ward up into second position. He's not quite close enough to challenge for the lead. And De Angelis there in third. Giovinazzi, after all this, after one point being outside the top 10, now finds himself in fourth and still charging. But has he got the pace to catch De Angelis for that third place? Further on back, this is Stefan Raquelme, by the looks of things, going down the inside of Fittipaldi and actually making the move stick into Perotada. That's the first time we've seen that happen today so far. So down the start-finish straight once again. No real changes this time around. Here's your leader, who's continuing to extend his advantage over O'Ward. 13 laps of the 18 completed so far. O'Ward relatively comfortable there in second position. He's got 2.3 seconds over De Angelis. And De Angelis has got even more of an advantage over Giovinazzi. So both drivers, for the moment, safe. But that's providing their cars stay reliable. Further on back, the battle for fifth position still rages on, of Sheldon van der Linde, Raquelme, Fittipaldi, Smirkowski, and they're all pretty much going all the way back to Marcello down in 11th. Pretty much all together, and this is that battle that I was saying about, as Marcello tries down the outside as Raquelme goes off! Off into the barriers goes Raquelme. Now what happened here? Was it a failure? No, the car just drifted out wide and into the barriers. He went, not much runoff there. And it's a double DNF for Team Monaco, after once again another team I was commending throughout the race and has fallen by the wayside. I think some team managers would probably not want me to be talking about their team at the moment, the way things have been going. And that's De Angelis off. So out of the race goes De Angelis. Is that a transmission? It is a transmission failure. They are all dropping like flies now. That's promoted Giovinazzi now into third position. And Giovinazzi actually running faster than O'Ward at the moment, but he's only got 4 laps to close in on the gap. And I think that's a bit of a bridge too far for the Italian. So 15 cars still remain in this race. And this is just the sprint race. Goodness knows what the feature race is going to be like, as Belinsky now comes under pressure now from Raquelme. Or actually no, that's Arthur Leclerc. Raquelme's already crashed out. So after earlier, I completely forgot about the fact that Leclerc actually managed to get running again after his incident. So it's not both Monaco cars out, as you can clearly see. Here is Pietro Fittipaldi, who, after having a bit of a stinker of a start, really, just by keeping his nose clean, he's found himself back in 6th position and fighting with Smiakowski for that 5th place. As further on back, there's a bit of an incident there, and I think, is that Rosenquist that's having an issue? I know it's Ericsson. So Hart, Mitchell, Ericsson all together just outside of the points. Villagomez is scoring the final point, so both Team Mexico cars on for points here in Mexico. And something is wrong with Sheldon van der Linden's car now, so that's going to be him out of 4th position. So that promotes Smiakowski into 4th position. Fittipaldi up into 5th, and that looks like a move going on there. Almost. Mitchell thought he was going to find a way through on Hart, and that's now allowed Ericsson back, but Hart still managing to, or Mitchell managing to get a good enough drive to go up a place, but then Hart's going to have a bit of a slipstream here, but not close enough to repay the favour into turn 1. Here is your leader, who's got a 3.8 second advantage over Award, so he's actually lost out a little bit of time to Award, but it's still a lot to ask for, as Arthur Leclerc finds a way through on Belinsky, but still, even though on fresher rubber, unable to find a way through. He's had several stabs at it, and this time he actually does go into 15th position. So Giovinazzi sets the fastest lap as he continues to try and hunt down O'Ward, but it's going to be too little too late, as we are on the final lap at the moment. The race leader is Da Costa, who leads from O'Ward and Giovinazzi in 3rd position. Team Poland, and Belinsky has a puncture. So after losing that position to Leclerc, although he wasn't within the points anyway. So Belinsky becomes another retirement, and the first mechanical failure of this race so far that hasn't been a transmission failure, if my memory serves me correct. But through the S's they come for the final time, and it is Da Costa who exits the S's. He just has the Perotada to go. The checkered flag is being made ready for Da Costa as he exits the Perotada and wins the Division 2 sprint race ahead of Pato O'Ward, who makes it across the line just ahead of Giovinazzi. Giovinazzi doing a sterling job to try and close on the final lap. And that looks like Fittipaldi, who's managed to go through on Smiakowski on the final corner of the final lap. So another position gained for the Brazilian. Marcello managing to come through there in 7th. So the rest of the field comes through. There's Sheldon van der Linde. Leclerc exits. He's not actually through the Perotada yet, he's just coming out the S's. But promising stuff by the Monegasque driver up until the point where he fell off the road. Oh, wait, and actually it's Alex Dune, so there is 16 finishes. I said there was only 15 left earlier, so another thing I didn't quite get right. But still, confirmation, Antonio Felix da Costa wins the Division 2 sprint race ahead of Pato O'Ward and Antonio Giovinazzi. Pietro Fittipaldi was 4th ahead of Jakub Smiakowski in 5th. Nicholas Latifi was 6th ahead of Raffaele Marcello. Felix Rosenquist was 8th ahead of Villagomez in 9th. And Sandy Mitchell took the final points playing position in 10th. Marcus Ericsson was 11th ahead of Max Hart, and Nico Verone was 13th. Moving further on down the order, and there aren't that many left. Sheldon van der Linde was 14th ahead of Arthur Leclerc, Alex Dune was 16th, Blinsky was classified, although did retire with 2 laps remaining, and on to the actual retirements. Roman DeAngelis, Riquelme, Albuquerque, Evans, Nazar, Lloyd, Kelvin van der Linde, Paul de Resta, and Jose Maria Lopez. And after all the chaos and carnage, I'll hand you back over to Chris.
Exactly what was needed from Antonio Fias da Costa in quite a mad fashion, as it were, with lots of position changes, but well done to Antonio Fias da Costa and Paddle Award for Mexico. Some very much needed points for his campaign. And yes, it's a very, very interesting and chaotic racing already. More is to come, I'm sure. And let's now look at the Division 1 now with the Java standings. And Nick de Vries takes the lead of this the championship at 84 points by 10 over Shane van Gisbergen, and then Alex Palou is on 71 points, 13 back after his efforts at Laguna Seca. Carl Kirkwood has now made a name for himself of late, on 66 points, with Kevin Estre of France on 66 as well. It's very, very close, and a lot of big names at the very top of the order. Some which are a bit further down, which would love to get something going for themselves, as Rene Rast for sure, and Scott Dixon. Both of them are, they're in the top 20, but they're somewhere away from the top, and they really need to get their acting gear going ahead into this race and for the rest of the championship. And we can see what the constructors looks like, and it is, shockingly close at the top, with Spain and New Zealand locked on 116 points, and only one back are the Netherlands on 115. Australia with some interesting results of late, but have still kept themselves in it on 108 points, with Switzerland in 106 and Germany on 101. It's a very, very close field all the way down to 12th place. Thailand really need to get their acting gear, but they've got a fairly reliable car, so hopefully they can get across the line around the circuit where there's going to be a few people potentially going off. But yes, it's so close in this field. It almost feels sad that the bottom 3 are going to be relegated, and some of them are probably going to be in a huge title fight, and then suddenly not. It's going to be very, very crazy indeed. But let's see. Now it is Division 1 sprint grid time, and Sebastian Buemi is on pole for Switzerland with Yuki Tsunoda in second place, with Scott Dixon in third place with his compatriot Shane van Gisbergen in fourth, Yugo Ugochukwu for the United States of America in fifth, with Steven Pagenaud in sixth. He'd be very glad with that. And then Kevin Estre in seventh place, with Kevin Magnussen in eighth, with Carl Kirkwood in ninth, and Christian Lundgaard in 10th, Philip Hansen for England in 11th, with Rene Rast in 12th, Kuba Kobayashi in 13th, with Jake Dennis in 14th, Pascal Wehrlein in 15th, with Alex Palou in 16th, Charles Mostert in 17th, Yuri Diatras 18th, Enzo Tambelichkel in 19th, Stoffel Van Dorn in 20th, Will Power 21st, Robin Franz of 22nd, Charles Wirtz of Belgium 23rd, Nick de Vries, the championship leader, on 24th, Daniel Jürgen 25th, and then Sandy Sturvik in 26th. And once again, back to Ryan Ferris.
After the chaos and carnage of the Div 2 race, what has Div 1 got on offer? We'll find out over the course of the 18 laps, but it's Sebastian Buemi on pole from Yuki Tsunoda in second position, and the lights go out, and away we go. And it's a good getaway there from Buemi, although as they get closer, it's an even better getaway from Van Gisbergen on that second phase of the start. Buemi tumbles back to fourth, but someone going further on down is Nick de Vries, who's in the wall. Now, did he have outside assistance? There's already some nudging going on from the Team Spain car from the back end of the grid, and sort of left the door open. I think that was, that may have been Enzo Tan that went into the back of him and has taken him out. Now, Enzo Tan, I think, if memory serves me correct, was serving a penalty possibly, and it's even going on even more. The two Team America cars have come together. So there's Ugochukwu. And it looks as though one has sent Estre into the other, and Ugochukwu stranded there in the middle, although still got some power. Kirkwood's missing a rear wing, so he had some sort of contact from behind, I think. There, yeah. And he's saying it was one of the Team Germany cars, was it? Well, that's Team England. Oh no, there we go. Straight into the back, rear wing missing. And again, that's Rene Rast. Although no damage to his car by the looks of things. Ugochukwu has managed to get going, although he's pretty much last. But whilst all that's going on, Tsunoda's managed to take the lead now off of Van Gisbergen. Buemi's fallen back to fourth, and Simon Pagenaud in third position. He must have a nosebleed that far up, given how his performance has been so far this season. But the rest of the field managing to find their way through the S's with no issue. But once again, the field a little bit spread out after the shenanigans into turn 1. But here comes Van Gisbergen lining up for a move into the Perotada. Is he close enough for a move? No, not quite. Tsunoda slowing the field down there. That's potentially going to put Van Gisbergen under some pressure, although Van Gisbergen's come off the final corner at a decent rate of knots, and that's allowing, well, Pagenaud thought he's going to have a go. In fact, he is going to have a go down the inside. Can he take 2 for the price of 1 here into turn 1? No, not quite. And down the inside, that's Magnussen going up into second position there. So Magnussen, who I think was in 5th position coming into turn 1, now finds himself in 2nd. Buemi still in 4th, with Pagenaud 3rd and Van Gisbergen in the lead. But Tsunoda, after leading out a turn out the final corner, finds himself back in 5th position. So Kirkwood has made his way back to pit lane. That's pretty much his race over and done with, but based on the attrition rate that we had in the first race, top 10 probably still a bridge too far, although if this was the feature race, I'd say you could possibly get into top 15 still. So Magnussen all over the back end of Van Gisbergen. He's going to have a go, I think, into the Perotada. Is he close enough this time around? No, not quite. And again, the pair of them slowing each other down, but that's okay because Pagenaud and Buemi are getting their own little scrap for P3. That's allowing Tsunoda back onto the tail of these three. But whilst that's going on, Magnussen sets the fastest lap and looks as though he's going for the lead into turn 1. No, he's not quite close enough, or is he? On his second time asking, through goes Magnussen into the lead. In the background there, it looks as though Tsunoda's managed to barge his way through from 5th to 3rd. Again, Buemi, I think on both occasions now, has looked to be taking a position and then finds himself still in 4th position. So, back at the front, Magnussen trying to get into some sort of rhythm. He's already pulled half a second on Van Gisbergen through the second sector. Now, Buemi pushing Tsunoda along. They're starting to put a couple of car lamps on Pagenaud, but as you can see through this middle sector, through the S's, Pagenaud's car is set up a little bit more for corners, so he closes right up, and again Buemi trying to go for a move down the inside on Tsunoda, and again it doesn't work. Magnussen again sets the fastest lap and has a 1.6 second advantage over Van Gisbergen. Now the squabbling continues for the 3rd position, and it looks as though is Tsunoda about to be swallowed up here as he sees down the inside comes Pagenaud, but joining the party now is Pascal Wehrlein. And after thinking Buemi is going to find a way through on Tsunoda, finds himself back in 6th position. So there is Philip Hansen. We've now got a bit of a train forming behind Buemi. It's pretty much the entire field by the looks of things. Going all the way back to, I think, Sandy Stuvik, who's outside the top 15. Now, further on up, Wehrlein's having a go at Tsunoda, and I don't think he's managed to get through, has he? No, he hasn't. So that has now allowed Buemi back onto this fight for P3. And he's brought Hansen along for company. So Buemi tries it round the outside of Wehrlein. Has he got the position? No, not quite. Yes, he has. Arrest, whilst all this is going on, has got a issue. Now Hansen under pressure from Scott Dixon for that 6th position, and Hansen's trying to find a way through on Wehrlein. So back towards the front, and Magnussen's pretty much cleared up already. Van Gisbergen finds himself as he comes across the line to complete lap 5 of 18. And is that Buemi slowing? It is! I think he must have missed a gear though, because he still carried on. But that's now put him under pressure from Wehrlein once again. So Buemi, who's trying to find a way through on Tsunoda and has spent best part of 5 laps trying to do so, finds himself back behind Wehrlein. So frustrating day at the office so far for Buemi. Further on back, Dixon still trying to find a way through. This time actually on Jake Dennis. So Dennis has found a way through on Dixon, and obviously Dixon trying to find a way through on Hansen. That hasn't worked out for him. And Estra has an issue, so Estra is currently sat in 12th position, so not threatening the points at the moment, as Buemi tries to find a way through on Wehrlein, and once again hasn't worked, and that's put him under pressure now from Hansen. Hansen, who was very much involved in a controversial incident here last time, where a few people felt that should have received some of the wrath of the stewards, but it didn't work out for him. But Hansen's still not through on Buemi. Buemi holds on to that P6 for the time being. As we currently look through to Robin Freins down in 14th position. He's got Enzo Tana. Zugichukwu gets it all locked up there. And for someone who's been struggling or got caught up in that opening incident, he's managed to catch up onto the back of the field once again. But we are on board now, and oh, he was punted, so contact from Delatraz from behind. I assume there may be some form of penalty coming Delatraz's way. And indeed it is a 10-second penalty for Delatraz as Kobayashi retires. So out goes Kobayashi. Here's Kevin Estra, who's made a visit to the pits, and they're going 3 abreast now down the start-finish straight. It's Hansen, Wehrlein and Buemi. Buemi's got the inside line, but you've got the 2 Brits on the outside, and Buemi goes through up into 5th. Hansen doesn't quite work out for him, still finds himself in 7th position behind Wehrlein now, as Lundgaard goes off and loses his front wing, so he's going to have to limp it back to pit lane. And Buemi's lost control of the car, so where's Buemi? There he is! Oh, and he's lost his front, he's lost the front nose, and he's lost a wheel as well. So whilst Lundgaard was having his own issues, Buemi's, well, I think out of pure frustration of trying to find his way in a good position, but not quite working out for him, after getting all the hard work done and getting through on Wehrlein, spanks it into the wall. Mostert now has to pit with an issue. But still, out front, Magnussen leads by 6.2 seconds over Shane van Gisbergen, and they've got a fairly comfortable advantage over Pagenaud, and Pagenaud relatively comfortable there. 3 seconds ahead of Tsunoda. Now this time Hansen goes down the inside of Wehrlein and does get the move to stick. Dennis is going to be following through fairly shortly. And whilst all these guys have been scrapping for position, as Dennis sends it down the inside but not quite close enough, this has all allowed Tsunoda to carry on up the road. So here is Pagenaud, a driver who we haven't really seen much of this season, and as he said, finally has some confidence with the car. Given his performance so far this season, you wouldn't have believed he was the Division 1 champion of last, but we're now starting to see signs of what we saw last season, and hopefully he can carry on with the way it's going. Estre has found his way back up into 17th with everyone else falling off the road. And here's a battle going on. This is Stubik fighting with Junkadea. Just behind that is Ugochukwu, actually, who's managed to get his way up into 14th. And Stubik goes through on Junkadea. Meanwhile, whilst all that's been going on, Wehrlein's found his way back through on Hansen, and now Dennis is all over his teammate now for 6th position. Now Lundgaard as well. Lundgaard's managed to make his way back to pit lane. So much has happened in such little time, I completely forgot about the fact that he lost his front wing just a lap ago. But here is his teammate, Kevin Magnussen, who leads by 8.2 seconds. He's already putting laps on the back markers. Is Van Gisbergen, who is now ahead of Magnussen's teammate, who's now fallen a lap behind as a result of his incident earlier. Here's Ugochukwu, and Enzo Tan getting it all wrong into the first chicane, and completely wrong there, so goes out wide, tries to collect it, loses the front wing and loses the car, but luckily he's able to recover relatively quickly, but he's going to have to go all the rest of the lap with no front end downforce. So here is Simon Pagenaud that we look to. Fairly comfortable there in P3, providing nothing goes wrong with the car. Tsunoda, a good few seconds back from him. And Wehrlein looks as though he's been let off the hook a bit here, with the two Team England cars scrapping for position. As Dennis has already found a way through on Hansen. Hansen's going to go back down the inside, and these are costing the pair valuable time against Wehrlein. It's allowing Wehrlein to get away from these two now. But in the background is Scott Dixon, who's happy to pick up the pieces, and he's putting himself in the right position to do so. back to the front. As is this an issue for Kirkwood? Is it P18? Magnussen sets another fastest lap of the race. But actually, Kirkwood here in 18th, stuck behind Charles Wirtz for 17th. I'm assuming Wirtz has had some sort of issue somewhere, because these are pretty much all drivers who have had to make some excursion into pit lane. Here's Van Gisbergen, who's just passed Lundgaard. Or actually, no, Lundgaard's caught up to the back of Van Gisbergen. So, Magnussen's own teammate could be causing a bit of trouble for the New Zealand driver. Obviously, Lundgaard, who had to pit for a new front wing, would have had some fresh tyres. Now here's Ugo Chugwu trying to find a way through on Danny Juncadella for P12. And after the poor start he had, being tangled up in that first corner incident, there's potential here with the pace that he's got. He may find a way into the top 10. I mean, he may require the assistance of other people ahead of him falling off the road through issues as such, but points still possibly on for Team America in this sprint race. So here's Van Gisbergen, still being somewhat harassed by Lundgaard. Although Van Gisbergen trying to put a bit of a gap in there. But whilst all this has been going on, Pagenaud has been quietly going about his business and catching Van Gisbergen here. Tsunoda still has a gap to Wehrlein, but the two Team England cars, once again, Dennis has gone ahead of Hansen, and they're still no closer to Wehrlein than they were a few laps back. But someone else who is definitely getting closer to them is Dixon, and there's yellow flags out, and that's because Will Power is retiring. So out goes Will Power. It says accident, but I don't see much damage to the car. Meanwhile, Robin Freins there in 10th position. You can see Sandy Stuvik in the background. Here's Kevin Magnussen, who's caught up onto the back end of René Rast, I believe that is. Kirkwood has finally found a way through on Charles Wirtz. Just behind them is Chaz Mostert, who's also had a pretty dire time of things of recent. Seemed as though Team America had, as Lundgaard is trying to find a way through on Van Gisbergen, and Van Gisbergen's not going to like this. Tries to hang it out round the outside, but not worked out for him. Magnussen's still stuck behind René Rast, and Rast isn't really letting him through here, and this is costing Magnussen time. But whilst that is costing Magnussen time, his own teammate is helping out a little bit by unlapping himself. But whilst that was all going on, and there's another yellow flag out, and it's Van Gisbergen! Van Gisbergen has spun from second position by the looks of things. So coming in to the second S, and on the exit just gets it all locked up in the wake of the car in front. But luckily for him, nothing has broken on the car. He's just got to try and spin the car around, although having a nudge of the barriers isn't going to help him. He's at risk of stalling the car. But that promotes Pagenaud into second, Tsunoda into third. But whilst all that was going on, Wehrlein is very close now to Tsunoda. He's within a second of the Japanese driver. Dennis and Hansen still squabbling away, and that's cost them dear time against Wehrlein. You can see Wehrlein on the back of Tsunoda now, but the two Team England cars not close enough to have any part in this race for third position now. Dixon's fallen off the back of these two a little bit now, so I think that charge is sort of coming to an end, but Some team radio there. I didn't quite catch it for Magnussen. Pagenaud happily there in P2, and he's got quite the margin ahead of Tsunoda, but 17.7 seconds behind Magnussen. But here is Wehrlein all over the back end of Tsunoda. Magnussen now goes for fastest lap once again, and I don't think he quite realises that you don't get points for every fastest lap. It's just the one. As down the inside comes Wehrlein, but unable to get through this time on Tsunoda. But this time, he managed to sort of pull out quick enough that it hasn't cost him any time down the start-finish straight. So he's back in the slipstream, and down the inside he's going to come as they go side by side. He's going to potentially have to make another stab at it, but no, he doesn't need a second take. Tsunoda tries to find a way through. Whilst all that was going on, Dixon, something's happened between Dennis and Hansen, and that's resulted in Dixon, who I said earlier was petering out a bit in his chase, but he's now gone through on Hansen, so something's gone on there. But Hansen's having none of that. He's going to try and fight back on Dixon. They go through Estelago, and able to find any way through there, but he still kept it on the track. Whatever happened, I'm assuming Hansen potentially went out wide through the Perotada, but that's released Dennis, and Dennis has got no real issues from the cars behind, so he can now chase after Tsunoda, which he's already done. And with the pace that he's got at the moment, if he can dispatch of Tsunoda quick enough, although we are starting the final lap, so it's going to have to be a move down the inside on Tsunoda, but Tsunoda pushed out wide and slowed the pair of them up, but he's going to have another go down into turn 1, but any chances of a podium, I think, are well and truly gone now for Dennis. So down the inside comes Dennis on Tsunoda, and that's going to be an easy taking there, as Hansen's also gone back through on Dixon. Tsunoda tries to fight back, but unable to do anything about it. Now, is there enough of an advantage? I think Wehrlein is possibly safe. He's got enough of an advantage over Dennis, so that's going to be third place for him, but we go back to our race leader, who comes out of the S's for the final time. He approaches the Perotada. And the checkered flag is out. And it's waiting for Magnussen, who crosses the line and wins in dominant fashion here in Mexico in this division sprint race. Pagenaud comes across the line in a much needed second place, with Wehrlein in third. So there is Pagenaud. We had to wait a while. It was nearly 20 seconds between himself and Magnussen. The car that I was mistaking for the other two were Estra and Rast, but no, we have had P2 and P3 through now. Dennis was unable to close that gap, which I expected he wouldn't have managed to have done in that final lap. Across the line it goes Delatraz in 11th, so just off of the top 10, although he has got a 10-second penalty looming fairly large over him, so that's going to put him down to, I think, about 14th. Not that it matters. As we wait for the rest of the field to come through, and I think the last car across the line is Chaz Mostert, who was only just ahead of Magnussen across the line, so had to go through the pain of doing a lap when he probably wanted to finish a bit sooner. But here's confirmation: Kevin Magnussen, your race winner with the fastest lap. Simon Pagenaud finally on the podium in second, and Pascal Wehrlein third. Jake Dennis was fourth ahead of Yuki Tsunoda in fifth, and Philip Hansen was sixth. Scott Dixon in the end was seventh ahead of Alex Plow in eighth. Sandy Stuvik was ninth, and Robin Fryans taking the final point there in 10th. Daniel Juncker was promoted up to 11th ahead of Kevin Astra, and Stoffel van Dorn was 13th. As we move further on down the order, Delatraz, after that 10-second penalty, was classified 14th ahead of Shane van Gisbergen after a spin. Ugo Chugwu was 16th ahead of Carl Kirkwood in 17th, and Chaz Mostert was the last across the line, but although there were some drivers a lap down, that was Charles Viert, Enzo Tarn, Christian Lundgaard and Rene Rast. On to the retirements. We didn't have that many retirements this time round. It was Will Power, Sebastian Buemi, Kamui Kobayashi and Nick de Vries. But all so chaotic still, and I will hand you back to Chris, who will give you the final classifications before we go into the feature races.
That has to be one of the most commanding sprint races we've ever had in the Nations Cup, to win by 19 seconds, over 19 seconds. In an 18-lap race, it's over a second a lap, pretty much. So that is an unbelievably commanding feat from Kevin Magnussen. I mean, he chose to set up wisely versus everybody else, quite clearly. And yeah, well done to him on that one. And some very interesting incidences that happened there. Poor Rene Rast is going to have to start a bit further back on the grid because of his incident, but we now can look forward to that in time. But first we have our Division 2 feature race, and here it is. Italy chose a very good setup indeed and are starting first and second on the grid with Raffaele Marcello on pole, Antonio Giovinazzi in second place. Arthur Leclerc equally. Monaco went for a wise setup, downforce focal in third place, with and then Ella Lloyd for Wales in fourth, with Elfyn Evans in fifth. What a great qualifying that is for them. Felipe Albuquerque in sixth, with Stefan Ricciardo in seventh, Pietro Fittipaldi in eighth, Antonio Felix da Costa in ninth, your sprint winner, and then Pato Award, the country boy, in 10th. Jakub Spikowski in 11th, Remington De Angelis in 12th, Max Harper Island in 13th, Sheldon van der Linde in 14th, Felipe Nasr in 15th, Jose Maria Lopez in 16th, Nico Marini in 17th, Rafael Villagomez in 18th, Felix Rosenquist in 19th, Alex Dunn 20th, Nicholas Latifi 21st, Kevin Magdalene 22nd, Paul Di Resta 23rd, Roman Belinsky 24th, Sandy Mitchell 25th, and then Marcus Ericsson in 26th. And for the first feature race of the day, back to you, Ryan.
It's time for the first feature race of the day, Division 2, and it's Raffaele Marcello and teammate Giovinazzi on the front row as we wait for the lights to go out, and it's away we go. It's a good getaway, but in the background, Felipe Albuquerque leapfrogging a lot of them. He's coming up, and is he going to have a challenge for the lead as they come down into turn 1? He's definitely having a look, and through he goes before we get to turn 1. So a brilliant start there from Felipe Albuquerque, but someone else who has also had a good start there is Elfyn Evans, but Marcello's fighting back and taking that second position away from him. Giovinazzi's had a terrible getaway, 5th position it is after starting on the front row, although he was pretty rapid in the sprint race earlier. But Felipe Albuquerque, who led briefly in the sprint race earlier, but the car let him down, leads ahead of Marcello, and Elfyn Evans and Ella Lloyd 3rd and 4th. Let's hope they can go the distance this time. But already Marcello has recovered and he's already stalking Felipe Albuquerque towards the end of this first lap. So out of the S as they come down to the Pro Retardo for the first time, Marcello has a look down the inside. Is this going to work? No, not quite. And the pair of them have slowed each other down. This has allowed Elfyn Evans all over the back end of Marcello for P2. They're going to all get a slipstream now. Down the start-finish straight. Elfyn Evans ducks out, goes for a lunge down the inside of Marcello. He's managed to get the job done there, but Marcello's going to come back at him. But after all that, Albuquerque must have get a blinder of an exit out of turn 1, as he didn't come under threat at all from the pair behind. And Evans goes out wide, he's lost his front wing. Terrible stuff there from the Welsh driver. He was under such pressure and put himself under pressure to try and get the job done. And through no fault but his own, has damaged his front wing, so he's going to have to make his way back to pit lane. The race isn't over here for him though. This is the feature, although he gets tripped over by Giovinazzi, I think that was. And now he's lost all of his front wing completely there, so through goes O'Ward, and Fittipaldi's lining him up for a move. He's just going to have to slowly make his way back to pit lane, and everyone else tripping over him. So a poor start, or poor luck there for Evans. But that now is pretty much status resumed of Albuquerque leads from Marcello. Ella Lloyd, and there's someone else getting it all wrong there. I think that might be Smitkowski trying to find a way through on Evans and not managing to do so, but we'll look to see there's Evans peeling into the pit lane. Ella Lloyd sets the fastest lap of the race at the end of lap 2. Now, is she going to bring herself into contention against Albuquerque and Marcello? You got the two Team Monaco cars scrapping away. There's a big old battle going on into turn 1. Who's going to come out on top out of these guys? And Leclerc not only loses out to his teammate, but also to Villagomez, who sneaks up into 12th, but Leclerc manages to squeeze his way back through on the exit of the first chicane, and that's an engine blowout there for Roman De Angelis. So on lap 3, and we've already got a car going bang. And this is really costing everyone behind. There's a big long train of cars all gathered up all the way back to 21st behind Villagomez. And he finally pulls himself off of the circuit. And sorry, that was De Angelis retiring. Back to the front, and already battling and jockeying for position. Ella Lloyd goes ahead of Marcello. Marcello's going to try and fight back into turn 1, but is he close enough? Yes, he is. So he's going to take that position back off of Lloyd. She's going to have a bit of a rethink, but in doing so, he's got Giovinazzi for company now. And down the inside it comes, Giovinazzi. Lloyd slams the door firmly shut. And this has now brought Antonio Felix da Costa and Pato O'Ward to the party. So Giovinazzi being told the game plan as he tries to find a way past Ella Lloyd, whilst teammate Marcello tries to find a way past Felipe Albuquerque. So he's going to line his way up for another move into the Perotada. That's not going to work, and it got very close there from the pairing, and at the same time Giovinazzi tried to find a way through on Lloyd, and that's definitely not worked out for Giovinazzi. That's put him under great pressure from O'Ward, but Lloyd is now on the attack on Marcello. Is she going to get the job done this time round into turn 1? Indeed she does. Further on back, O'Ward's managed to find a way through on Da Costa and Giovinazzi. But could we be seeing well, at least a podium potentially for Lloyd, but can she go that a little bit further and go for the win? I'm sure at this point you and Gail will be shouting at me to simmer down on those comments, as it seems anyone who I speak well of seems to be later retiring from this race. But Lloyd all over the back of Albuquerque. Marcello's also very much glued to the back of Lloyd, and it is pretty much turning into a pass or be pass situation here. Lloyd goes for a move down the inside. Is that going to work? No, not quite. That's going to allow Marcello to get a run, but Lloyd parks the car on the apex, on the exit of Perotada, not giving Marcello any chance to go through it. Again, Lloyd sets the fastest lap of the race and is going for a move down the inside of Albuquerque into turn 1. And through goes Lloyd into the lead of this Mexican feature race. So Ella Lloyd of Team Wales leads ahead of Felipe Albuquerque. Raffaele Marcello is third ahead of Pato O'Ward. Giovinazzi has managed to get back up into fifth ahead of Da Costa. But the top 6 all separated by just over 2 seconds. So around the S as they go, and you can see how Team Wales have definitely gone for a downforce setup here as she pulls out car lengths through the corners. And she's disappearing off up the road. It's half a second at the moment, the gap, but I think it's going to be a little bit bigger as Marcello tries for a move down the inside of Albuquerque, but thinks better of it, and that's actually tripped himself up and allowed Pato O'Ward onto the tail. So O'Ward going for a move. Marcello well and truly in the slipstream of Albuquerque, so that might give him a little bit of a saving grace against O'Ward, but O'Ward on the brakes, sends it down the inside and takes away third position from Marcello. Ella Lloyd once again setting the fastest lap, but that being taken away by Arthur Leclerc down in 9th position. Here's Stefan Riquelme, 14th position for the Monegasque driver at the moment. He's behind Max Hart, and just ahead of Hart is Felix Rosenqvist. Now, Team Sweden definitely not going for the best setup this weekend. Rosenqvist, who we're used to seeing running at the front, is finding himself scrapping for the lower end of the points. So out front, and O'Ward's gone through on Albuquerque. So O'Ward's managed to force his way through on Albuquerque in Perotada, and that's put him fairly vulnerable now to the two Team Italy cars, and Marcello already is going to make light work of him as he takes two chances at trying to go through on the Portuguese driver and does manage to get through. So now it is Lloyd, O'Ward and Marcello, your top three. Da Costa's now tailed off of these guys, so I'm not sure what happened to him. He's lost nearly 2 seconds to Giovinazzi. O'Ward running fairly light on fuel, but what that does mean is Sandy Mitchell tries to find a way through on Riquelme, who's dropped to 15th now. And Max Hart has actually found a way through on Rosenqvist. O'Ward has to try and chase after Lloyd, and that's a lock-up there for Sheldon van der Linde through the S's. There's Villa Gomez just behind in 11th. Remember, it's the top 15 that score in the feature race, as we see what looks to be Leclerc putting a move on Smiakowski, but not quite working out for him. Further and back, more jockeying for position going on, as that looks as though... It is. Giovinazzi's dropped back to 6th. So after making the comment of Da Costa being 2 seconds off the back of this group as Leclerc goes through on Smiakowski this time, Da Costa's managed to catch and pass Giovinazzi. And so the two Team Portugal cars sit 4th and 5th at the moment. They've lost a little bit of time to Marcello, but I think based on the pace that they've got, Marcello's now back on terms with O'Ward, and these two have pretty much been to-ing and fro-ing for a good period of time. It seems like Felipe Albuquerque's holding the pair up behind. Marcello thinks better of it, so he's not gone for a move through the Pirotada. That's going to allow him to have a good run on the exit down to turn 1. You can see the two Team Portugal cars squabbling in the background along with Giovinazzi. Now Marcello tries around the outside, he goes for the inside and still unable to go through. Albuquerque under pressure now from Da Costa. Da Costa tries around the outside but unable to go through on his teammate. I feel like if that was another driver and not his teammate, he might have forced the issue a little bit more now there, but that's now put him under pressure from Giovinazzi. Further on back, Fittipaldi sits in 7th ahead of Leclerc. Smiakowski is 9th ahead of Sheldon van der Linde in 10th. And it's Smirkowski that we look at now. But here is your race leader. 2.6 seconds is the advantage. It did look like O'Ward at one point was catching, but has lost out a deal of time now, and has got Marcello all over the back end. But again, Marcello this time goes for a move down the inside of O'Ward. That gets perilously close. But Marcello ducks out the slipstream, comes side by side, but it seems at this point, this is where the Team Italy car doesn't quite have the poke down the straights required to get past the Mexican. And whilst all this is going on, Felipe Albuquerque has managed to break free from teammate Da Costa. 1.3 seconds he has over his teammate, whilst Da Costa still has Giovinazzi all over him like a rash. Further on back, some more swapping and changes of position. Raquelme continuing to fall backwards at the moment. And there's Latifi all over the back of Felipe Nasr. And Nasr and being beaten by his teammate once again. When we saw Albuquerque's... sorry, not Albuquerque. But through goes... No, I thought for a moment then Marcello definitely found a way through, but not quite this time. Da Costa's got it all wrong going through the Perotada that time, and that's allowed Giovinazzi through. And it's all starting to close up a bit more at the front. Still, Ella Lloyd leads from 3.6 seconds, as it looks to be a lock-up there from Felipe Albuquerque, and that's allowed Giovinazzi back onto him. So here's Pietro Fittipaldi. Had a little bit of a shaky start in his first couple of races, but he's really come on strong these past couple of races, and is really put in some solid performances against his seasoned teammate of Felipe Nasr. But he's got Arthur Leclerc for company for that 7th position. He sits at the moment 5 seconds back from Da Costa, as we look to race leader Ella Lloyd, who's still going about her business. I think she's going to be pitting, or one of the earlier drivers to pit, as Leclerc has a look through at the Perotada and unable to get through this time around. That's going to put him under pressure from Smirkowski once again. So these three battling for 7th position. Leclerc pulls out one way of the slipstream, Smirkowski goes for the other, and by the looks of things has taken the pair of them coming down into turn 1. But what has Leclerc got to say about that? He's got nothing to respond. So great stuff there from the Polish driver. Spent many a time racing for into Europol in the LMP2 category, and has won as... Is that Ella Lloyd retiring? No, it's not. She's just going wide. So first mistake we've really seen from Ella Lloyd, but it's alright. She's got... Well, she had a 4-second advantage to her wall, but that's been cut in half pretty much. Here we go, Raffaele Marcello in the slipstream award for that 2nd position. Paul di Resta is out of the race, and that definitely looks as though he's caused some sort of damage to his car, as he's done pretty much what most drivers have done this weekend so far, and spanked it into the wall on the exit of Estelago. Lloyd has managed to sort of regroup a bit. She's continued to extend her advantage over Award. And Lopez, potentially the first to pit on strategy at the end of lap 13. And that's Ricalmi, I believe. Just outside the top 15. Yeah, ahead of Sandy Mitchell. So Nicholas Latifi down in 20th position. Roman Belinsky getting it all locked up down in 14th position. And that's really caused a train of cars behind. Belinsky ahead of Rosenquist, who's fallen to 15th and is at real threat of not scoring any points here this afternoon. But back at the front, the battle continues for these top 5 positions. This time, it's Giovinazzi still trying to find a way through on Felipe Albuquerque, but still the Team France, or no, sorry, the Team Italy car not managing to find a way through. So here's the battle for P2 once again, and Marcello is caught back up to O'Ward. Further on back, here's Pietro Fittipaldi still under pressure, and that's getting very close between himself and Arthur Leclerc for 10th position. Now, O'Ward is going to pit. They feel that they've found a good gap on the track to slot him back in. O'Ward, as Marcello also pits at the same time, so it's going to be a race on the pit lane. Lloyd carries on in the lead. So O'Ward, Marcello in pit lane. Da Costa now takes that second position. Marcello has yet to exit pit lane actually, so the rest of the field all filter on through. There's a few more people pitting. That's Leclerc who's come in. And Felipe Albuquerque has got an engine failure. So once again, parks it on the exit of pit lane. As you can see, O'Ward coming out just ahead of Marcello, but luckily both of them filtering out just in front of, I think that's Smirkowski potentially. But Albuquerque with another failure. Possible chance of a podium on the cards, and once again lost out to reliability. But this is Giovinazzi that we're on board with in third position, 12 seconds back from Ella Lloyd, and he peels into the pit lane. Lloyd carries on, and so does Da Costa. Ella Lloyd going ever so wide there on the exit of the first chicanes. Luckily for Lloyd, didn't do the same as Evans did earlier on in the race and still has got her front wing intact, but warning sign there as Evans comes in for another pit service. So a lot of drivers most likely just going for the one-stop strategy. Still in the lead, Ella Lloyd, and once again doesn't come to pit lane. Here's Felipe Nasr with Sandy Mitchell. He goes up into P19. So another lap ticked off in the book, 17 laps completed of the 36, and Lloyd is yet to stop. Here's Max Hart fighting with Pietro Fittipaldi, and sends Pietro Fittipaldi off almost. Ever so close to coming to tears there, and Elvin Evans comes out of pit lane and has an engine failure straight away. So it's gone from bad to worse for one Welsh driver, but still going on fairly well for the other. So Elvin Evans out of the race and becomes one of the many retirements we have had and most likely still to see in this race. So on board now with Villagomez, who's yet to stop. He's got Smiakowski just in front of him. And the team have made the call. Ella Lloyd is coming to pit lane now. Has she built up enough of a gap to hold on to that lead, as the likes of O'Ward and Marcello have had a few laps now on those new tyres? Have they managed to perform the undercut? Obviously, Lloyd has shown great pace in this first stint, so I have somewhat confidence that if she does come out behind the pair of them, she has got the pace to come back past. But obviously, Lloyd's name tumbles down the order, and Smiakowski and Villagomez stay out. So too does Hart, and on the exit, there is Ella Lloyd. She comes out in 5th position with a large gap, as Riquelme's crashed out at Pirotada, but she's got an even bigger gap than what she left with O'Ward and Marcello. Riquelme's out, as you can see the car being... And that looked like that was a big accident there, because there didn't seem to be much left of that car that was being pushed away there. But at the moment, your net race leader is Ella Lloyd, with Fittipaldi in front, Hart, Villagomez and Smiakowski, your current race leader, but they're all yet to stop. And Villagomez pulls the trigger whilst Antonio Felix da Costa struggling to find grip through the S's. And both Hart and Villagomez have now pitted. That's promoted Lloyd into 3rd, Fittipaldi and Smiakowski continue on. The two up front trying to go for the tyres outer. And Lloyd pretty much has close to 6 seconds over O'Ward, and before the pits was more like 2.5 to 3 seconds was the advantage between Lloyd and O'Ward, but it seems the undercut really hasn't worked for O'Ward and Marcello. And there's Villagomez locking up and into the wall. And that looks as though that is retirement, potentially, for one of the home nation heroes. No, he carries on. He's managed to get the car going still. So, fresh out the pit lane and fresh into the wall. Smiakowski now pits from the lead. That's one more position gained for Ella Lloyd. In fact, Fittipaldi is also pitted, so Lloyd regains the lead. Ella Lloyd being told to leave her to it with 16 laps remaining. It is still Lloyd from O'Ward and Marcello just over 1.4 seconds behind O'Ward. And Da Costa just sat a little bit behind. Here's Felipe Nasr, who finds himself battling with Belinsky. And Smiakowski came out in 6th position, ahead of Giovinazzi. So Giovinazzi, after battling up the front, finds himself a little bit further down the order than we'd expect from the Italian driver. 17 seconds off the lead. Fittipaldi came out in 9th, just behind Sheldon van der Linde, but ahead of Arthur Leclerc. But obviously both drivers with a considerably decent tyre offset, and will have just that little bit more pace than those ahead. Here is Giovinazzi trying to find a way through on Smirkowski, and as Alex Dunn pits from 5th. Smirkowski fresh out of pit lane now, but under pressure from Giovinazzi. Giovinazzi going to try and find a way through into turn 1, but obviously the issue that we've seen with the Team Italy cars is they're fast through the corners, but they just don't have the straight line speed to make a move into turn 1. Back at the front, O'Ward. Still with Marcello not too far behind. 6.4 seconds is the gap between himself and Ella Lloyd out in front. So, Lloyd crosses the line to complete 22 of the 36 laps. Here's Alex Dunn just outside, just coming out of pit lane and looking to, on cold tyres, struggling for a bit of grip there through the S's. He currently finds himself in 13th. And is potentially catching Villagomez, who was obviously recovering from that off-track excursion earlier. In the background there, Da Costa looking as though he's potentially closing on these two. O'Ward trying to keep the gap between the front runners of Marcello. Further on back, this is Ericsson versus Latifi. Felipe Nasr going wide into turn 1 and makes contact there, as it sent Rosenquist off the circuit. So here we go, Nasr locks up, leaves the door open for Rosenquist, but in rejoining has sent Rosenquist off and has actually lost his front wing, so that's going to be a penalty for sure. So we were on board when it happened, so he goes out wide, tries to recover it, makes contact with Rosenquist. Rosenquist gets sent into the barriers, loses his front wing. And I think that is most likely going to be a penalty for Rosenquist, but Nasr, but Rosenquist not making the safest of re-entries there. But it's a 30-second penalty there and a grid drop for Nasr. After all that has promoted Sandy Mitchell into P15 in the final point. Here's Arthur Leclerc trying to find a way through on Fittipaldi, but at the same time I think that's Max Hart who's managed to come through into 8th. So Hart there in 8th, Leclerc 9th, and now Fittipaldi down in 10th. Giovinazzi still unable to find a way through on Smirkowski for that 5th place. And Da Costa is gradually catching onto the back of Marcello. The gap is about 1.4 seconds between, actually it might be as close to 1.3 seconds between O'Ward and Marcello. And Lloyd continues to extend her advantage. They come across the line one more time as Da Costa goes off and into the wall. So after I was saying that Da Costa was catching, into the barriers he goes at Pirotada. And I don't think he's actually broken anything. Team Portugal have built a fairly robust vehicle there, because all he's done is hit the wall, but lost no places. He comes out just in front of Smirkowski. Although Smirkowski on much fresher tyres than Da Costa. Oh, Ward's now going off now, and he's off into the grass and into the barriers. And I think, has the engine stalled? I think it may have. It is. Oh, Ward out of the Mexico feature race. The home nation's hero will not be standing on the podium. And that now promotes Da Costa, after chucking it at the scenery, now finds himself in third position. That's allowed Marcello off the hook. He's got 8 seconds to Ella Lloyd ahead, but a fairly healthy advantage to Da Costa from behind. So, barring any mistakes or reliability issues, I think that's fairly safe for Marcello. But meanwhile, Giovinazzi trying to find a way through on Smirkowski at the Pirotada, but still unable to get through on the Polish driver. So I was saying earlier, as we see in the background, there's a 4-way scrap going on here for P6. It's all starting to shuffle around. Fittipaldi 9th, Leclerc finds his way up into 8th. Further on in the background, Calvin van der Linde in 10th, so not looking too bad for Team South Africa. They've struggled of recent, but at the moment both cars inside the top 10. Round one more time to cross the line. It'll be 10 laps to go for Ella Lloyd. It's great to see what the exact advantage is. 8.5 seconds it is to Raffaele Marcello. Marcello's been released now, although has a lot of work to do if there is any chance as we look further on back, and that's battling for position there. We're seeing multiple things going on at once there. We had Smirkowski once again under pressure. We saw Hart, I think, managing to go through on one of the drivers there around the Pirotada. Now he's going to try once again down the inside of Sheldon van der Linde. Van der Linde tries to hold on, but loses out in the end. Leclerc holds off Fittipaldi, and all this has allowed Kelvin van der Linde to join the party. So Hart into P6. He's got some margin though to try and catch. Actually, not too much. 2.3 seconds between himself and Giovinazzi, who's still unable to find a way through on Smirkowski. But Ella Lloyd at the moment is in a completely different league. And hopefully, I'm sure, Ewan Gale has got all his fingers and toes crossed. As Marcello actually loses time out to Lloyd, so I think that's pretty much his chances over. But still, in the background, Hart has managed to get away, but here comes Calvin van der Linde down the inside of Leclerc. Another position lost for the Monegasque driver. Fittipaldi now up into 8th. He's going to try and hunt down Sheldon van der Linde, and as I said, Hart scampering off up the road and actually catching Giovinazzi. Who is still unable to find a way through on Smirkowski. And Giovinazzi once again having a look down the inside of Smirkowski through Perotada. It's not worked once again, and I think if we pan out and come off aboard, it's not quite as close as I thought it was, but Hart is definitely getting closer. The gap is now down to 1.7 seconds. Sheldon van der Linde now under pressure from Fittipaldi, and Fittipaldi dives down the inside of the South African driver. And the two brothers are now together 8th and 9th. And that looks like Nasser, I'm not sure if he was retiring there, but he's gone wide and lost part of his front wing. It just appears that the car was being, well, very lazy there, not wanting to turn in. Looked awful for the Brazilian driver. Still out in front. 9 seconds is the advantage. Still, Giovinazzi unable to find a way through on Smirkowski, and as you can see, that Team Ireland car starting to loom large in the background. So Calvin van der Linde at 9th position at the moment, goes in front of his teammate and brother Sheldon van der Linde for 8th. Marcello continuing to lose time to Lloyd, but I think he's just concentrating on getting the car home. Here is Antonio Felix da Costa, who's finds himself 16 seconds approximately behind Marcello. Now, here's Jakub Smirkowski, still holding on in front of Giovinazzi, and this is the issue for Team Italy at the moment. He's going to have a move down the inside, but I doubt he's going to go through. And he does go through, actually, so he's tried and tried again, and he's finally managed to find a way through, and that's now opened the door for Max Hart, who also, I think, is going through. No, Smirkowski holds on for the time being. Yes, he does. So Leclerc with an issue. He's come back to pit lane. But I was about to say, for Giovinazzi, it was Einstein's theory of insanity. If you try the same thing over and over again and still get the same result, but somehow it has worked for him this time. So that has released the Italian driver, and as you can see, the car's definitely been set up as Latifi's struggling for grip there. The car's definitely been set up for the corners. You can see he's starting to scamper off up the road. So you look to Ella Lloyd, and in the background that's Felipe Nasr who goes off. But luckily for him, somehow after chucking it in the barriers and going airborne, he doesn't appear to have any issues. But someone who is having an issue there is Max Hart, who's gone very deep into turn 1, and all that effort he's done to get away from Calvin van der Linde has been undone there, and there's a big accident in the background. I think that looks to be Villa Gomez, potentially. And Sheldon van der Linde. So van der Linde round the outside of Villa Gomez, goes wide, loses it, and then collects Villa Gomez. Van der Linde now out, has lost the rear wheel. Here's Alex Dunn, who's managed to find his way through on Villa Gomez as a result of that. I'm not sure whether or not the stewards will be looking into that. Obviously, yeah, no further action. It was pretty much a racing incident, but there's Alpha Leclerc off again. And Monaco having a torrid day of things, and I think that looks as though he might be just pulling in to retire, because he doesn't look to be making much effort to try to go back to the track. I think Leclerc's just had enough of things. No, he's just deciding he's just going to do some donuts in the grass of turn 1. Yep, that's... I'm not quite sure what Leclerc is doing or trying to achieve, because it doesn't look like he's achieving much in trying to get back on the track. Meanwhile, Belinsky pits, so I'm not sure if that's scheduled or whether or not he has an issue. And Leclerc reverses on the track and now has finally got going. Here's Felipe Nasr, goes through the Pirotada this time. No contact with the wall. Here's Da Costa stuck behind Felix Rosenqvist, down in 18th position, obviously having that incident earlier, and Rosenqvist not really complying much with Da Costa there in allowing him through. So Da Costa fires his way out of the Pirotada. Well, one more time, it's 33 laps of the 36 completed. And Smirkowski is actually still ahead of Hart. Alex Dunn and Villagomez still battling away for that 9th position. Villagomez will be quite frustrated really after obviously being caught up in that incident with Van der Linde, and Villagomez retakes that 9th place away. Antonio Felix da Costa saying he'll take P3, but he's not quite at the finish yet. There is still a couple of laps for anything to go wrong. Ella Lloyd with what's probably going to be a 10-second advantage across the line. Not quite, but not far off. On board now with the remaining Team South Africa car of Calvin van der Linde, trying to chase down Max Hart, but he's not quite close enough. But he's got a little over a second over Fittipaldi, so potentially safe for the time being in that P7. As we look to Da Costa there, who's obviously gone through on Rosenqvist. You can see Giovinazzi and Smirkowski in the background, but here's Ella Lloyd. She's only got a lap and a bit to go. And barring any mistakes and any issues with the car, she is well and truly on course to win here in Mexico. So, on to the final lap comes Ella Lloyd, and she's got best part 10 seconds over Marcello, who's only just coming across the line now. Here's Jakub Smirkowski struggling for grip through the S's, which is fairly interesting considering he's on the fresher tyres, not quite the freshest tyres on the circuit at the moment. Here's Da Costa, who said he'll take third after his fairly violent off-track excursion at Pirotada, and I still can't believe he managed to come out of that unscathed and still in third position. But albeit it was fourth at the time, but helped by the exit of the home nation hero that was Pato O'Ward. But here is Ella Lloyd. She's coming through the S's for the final time onto the straight leading up to the Pirotada, with just one corner to go for Ella Lloyd, and the checkered flag is being made ready for a win here in Mexico for Team Wales. Ella Lloyd wins the Division 2 feature race here in Mexico. It's a first win for her. I think actually, if my memory serves me correct, I think that might be a first win in a feature race for Wales. I'm sure Chris will correct me on that. But Marcello comes over the line in second, and here comes Da Costa. I think he'll be very happy with that P3. Giovinazzi has managed to gap Smirkowski in the end. He put in the hard work and he finally paid off for P4. I feel as though Giovinazzi probably won't be too happy with that P4, given the fact he was battling at the front end of the field at the start of the race. Here comes Sandy Mitchell. As we wait for the rest of the field to filter on through. So everyone now home and dry who is still circulating. We see confirmation that Ella Lloyd wins here at Mexico ahead of Raffaele Marcello and Antonio Felix da Costa. Antonio Giovinazzi was 4th ahead of Jakub Smirkowski in 5th. Max Hart was 6th ahead of Calvin van der Linde, and Pietro Fittipaldi was 8th. Rafael Villagomez was 9th ahead of Alex Dunn, rounding out the top 10. Sandy Mitchell was 11th with Marcus Ericsson 12th, and Jose Maria Lopez was 13th. Nico Varone was 14th, with Nicholas Latifi taking the final point there in 15th ahead of Roman Belinsky. Felix Rosenquist and Arthur Leclerc and Felipe Nasr all finishing a lap off of the lead. And we go on to the retirements of Sheldon van der Linde, Pato Award, Stefan Ricalmi, Alvin Evans, Felipe Albuquerque, Paul di Resta and Roman De Angelis. So absolute chaos and carnage once again, but a dominant performance from Ella Lloyd, who also took the fastest lap in that race. I will hand you back over to Chris, who will give you the final standings.
Hats off to Wales for an incredible victory today. Their first feature race win of the Nations Cup in both Season 1 and Season 2. What a commanding drive from Ella Lloyd. You know, absolutely faultless. And well done to Italy for some great points haul this weekend. And well done to Max Hart and Alex Dunn for Ireland getting some points while some people really, really struggled, like the both monogas cars and all sorts. But again, a absolutely bonkers race, and we can see what the standings looks like now because of it. The impressive Italian points haul, especially for Raffaele Marcello, makes him go back to the top of the standings on 98 points. Felix Rosenquist hangs in there on 97, just 1 point behind. Felipe Nasr now drops to 3rd on 94. Jose Maria Lopez on 89, just 9 behind. Roman De Angelis falls to 5th at 87. It is just an unbelievably close championship, and now Pato Award is in striking distance for sure on 15 points to Marcello, and more importantly only 14 to his rival last season, Felix Rosenquist. And there'll be some who'll be ruining what happened. Philip Albuquerque, for example, on 53 points, not had a lot of luck at all this racing weekend. Nor did Nico Varone. He wished he probably had a few more results going his way too. But now we can see the nation standings, and Italy's impressive weekend has really shown now. They've sort of half gapped the good close group behind them. They're now on 154 with Argentina 129, Sweden 128, Brazil 126. Really, really interesting now as we approach the halfway point of this season. Absolutely brilliant. And now Monaco, look at them fall below Wales after this round now. What an amazing result it is for the Welsh outfit. Now we can look forward to the Division 1 feature grid, and due to Denmark showing an impressive setup choice as seen in the sprint, Christian Lundgaard leads the way on the feature grid on pole, with Carl Kirkwood beside them only 1/10 back. Kevin Magnussen 1.5 tenths back, and then it's nearly 7 tenths to the next car. Kevin Estre in 4th. And it's Simon Pagenaud in 5th. It's compatriot with Yugo Ugochukwu in 6th. Then it's the Kiwi cars of Shane Van Gisbergen and Scott Dixon in 7th and 8th. Yuki Tsunoda in 9th with Sebastian Buemi in 10th. Philip Hansen in 11th, who was the last feature winner last season, in 11th, with Kamui Kobayashi in 12th. Jake Dennis in 13th. Pascal Wehrlein 14th. Alex Palou 15th. Chas Mostert 16th. Rene Rast taking the penalty from the sprint race now in 17th. Louis Delatraz in 18th. And Enzo Tarpanichkal in 19th. Stoffel Van Dorn 20th. Will Power 21st. Robin France 22nd. Charles Veers 23rd. Nick de Vries 24th. Daniel Yogider 25th, and Sandy Stuvik in 26th. Now for the last race of the day, back to Ryan Ferris.
It's time for the final race of the day, the Division 1 feature race. What chaos and carnage is in store as we see Lundgaard and Kirkwood on the front row, and as the lights go out, we're away here for one final time in Mexico. Lundgaard getting a good getaway there. Estre coming around the outside here, and he's going side by side with Lundgaard. And indeed takes the lead briefly. Has he? Yes, he has. But here comes Lundgaard, going to come back down the inside. Tries to retake his... In the background, Dixon getting it all locked up. And that's Simon Pagenaud off with him as well. So there's contact in the background there. It looks as though one of the Team Germany cars might be missing part of their front wing. I think that's Pascal Wehrlein. And you can just about see their contact between Wehrlein and Carl Kirkwood. And once again, we have the Skittles effect down into turn 1. If I was to portion blame on anything, I think that was Wehrlein just sweeping into Kirkwood like he wasn't there. So we'll see what as there's further shenanigans going on in the background. I think that's both Team Switzerland cars getting involved with. I think potentially Magnussen maybe. I'm not sure. I saw there was a third car involved there, but back at the front it's Kevin Estre from Hansen and Lundgaard. No further action on that opening incident at turn 1. Stewards being fairly consistent so far this weekend. Hansen seeming to have good top end speed, but as you can see through the S's here, not able to stay with Estre. This is similar to what we saw from Pagenaud. Pagenaud luckily just moves up into 8th place ahead of Wehrlein, so he's not completely out of this. As down the inside goes Lundgaard, tries to pass Hansen but doesn't get through. That's allowed Estre to scamper off down the road. He's made a massive gap now over Hansen. Just behind that, that's Van Gisbergen having a go on Dennis, I think that is. Actually, no, it's Ugochukwu. So Yugo Ugochukwu up in 5th. We haven't seen him this high up before, I don't think. We already had an unexpected victory in the first feature race. Will we see another? So around the S's once again. Estre with a 1.7 second advantage already over Hansen. Hansen has managed to put out a bit of a gap on Lundgaard as a result of some of the to-ing and fro-ing behind, although Lundgaard has managed to break away from that group, and you've got Ugo Ugachuk now having a look there at Van Gisbergen. Further behind you've got Kirkwood looking as though he's sizing up Lundgaard for a move. Actually no, sorry, that's Dennis. And Ugachuk having another look, another try on Shane Van Gisbergen, but still unable to go through, which suggests to me that Team America running a slightly more downforce dependent car, but at the same time Kirkwood goes through on Dennis for 6th position. Further on back, P10, this is Alex Pillow, who's a few seconds off the back of Yuki Tsunoda for 9th. Looks as though he's struggling a little bit there through the middle sector. And Christian Lundgaard goes off. Into the barriers goes Lundgaard. He says no grip. Well, considering they're only into the 3rd lap of this race, his tyres shouldn't be shot by now. And the whole field streams through, and that's potential for a good result thrown away. Meanwhile, back at the front, Kevin Estre with just over 2 seconds is the gap between himself and Hansen. Ugochukwu has now gone up into 3rd ahead of Van Gisbergen. Further on back, this is Rene Rest coming back after receiving a penalty in the sprint race earlier. He's moving his way through the field. From back, Kamui Kobayashi sending it down the inside of Magnussen. Now Magnussen was obviously absolutely rapid earlier in the sprint. It just seems as though when he's not in clear air, he just hasn't got that same level of pace. He's been held up by the two, with Van Dorn and Rast. He's practically pushing Van Dorn along. So through the S's, and Rast, or Van Dorn, actually having a bit of a moment there. Ugochukwu sets the fastest lap of the race. As whilst that was going on, Kobayashi trying to send a move, and Rast must have a problem here, as into the pit lane he comes, and that's allowed Magnussen to have a go now at Stoffel Van Dorn as he tries to have a go down the inside, and indeed takes that position away from Van Dorn. He's got some clear air now to chase off after Moster in 11th. Here is your race leader, Kevin Estre, who's struggling for grip a bit there through the S's. That's going to allow Hansen to close in a little bit. But he too has not had the grip that he would have wanted through the S's. But here is Ugochukwu, who's a few seconds off the back of Hansen now, but as you can see, currently holds the fastest lap of the race. And he's really enjoying these early conditions. Kirkwood trying to make a move on Dennis. That's allowed Pagenaud to catch up onto the back of him. Back here is Sebastian Buemi going down the inside of Sandy Stuvik, unable to get through. He was caught up in a separate incident in turn 1 on the first lap, and they're going 3 abreast now. That's Buemi, De Vries and Daniel Juncadella going down into turn 1, so this is possible carnage as De Vries actually takes 2 in 1 there and takes Stuvik as well. So that is 1 championship point there for De Vries. Hansen is slowly catching Estre here. It's now down to 1.3 as Buemi has a go at Juncadella, but unable to find a way through. So around the final corner once again to complete lap 6 of 36. And further on back, Jake Dennis still under pressure from Simon Pagenaud. Pagenaud unable to get through still. Kirkwood's dropped back to 8th. Here is Delatraz, who's actually fighting with Kirkwood now. He's gone through before they reach turn 1. But is Kirkwood going to have a go back? No. Kirkwood hoping that they're running a heavier fuel load, because the pace that he's seeing in this early stint doesn't seem to be matching what he was expecting. Here's Magnussen still trying to find a way through on Alex Palou, and he's actually been very quick in catching him. He's brought Tsunoda along with Kobayashi along with him. Mostert has actually gone through on Palou for P10. Dennis getting it completely wrong through the S's. That's going to allow Pagenaud to have a bit of a sniff, although Pagenaud not been successful so far in getting through up at the Perotada, because he's going to have another go this time round. Down the inside he goes, and once again it looks as though Dennis has the upper hand. This has now allowed the likes of Tsunoda and Delatraz to catch up onto Pagenaud. Pagenaud trying to go a little bit on the defensive there for Tsunoda, and the pair of them going 3 abreast now. And Tsunoda is going to take the pair of them. So Pagenaud, after making that major mistake of trying to overtake Dennis, finds himself down in 8th position. Meanwhile, back at the front, Estra still leading. He's managed to pull a 10th out on Hansen, but Hansen's keeping him fairly honest. Further on back here is Alex Palou, who's now been passed by Kevin Magnussen, and now he finds Stoffel van Dorn looking to have a go, who's passed Kobayashi this time round. So Hansen and the team believing they're running a little bit heavier than Kevin Estra, which is potentially some hope for the English drivers. Daniel Juncadella struggling for grip there through the S's. And here is, or there was, Ugo Jugu, who's gradually coasted up to the back of Hansen, as there looks to be some battling going on ahead. And that is Juncadella and Tan Venetschool. Back to Hansen, who's in the middle. There's Buemi trying to put a move on Sammy Stuvik, but not able to get through. And he's going off into the barriers. He's lost his front wing. He's lost his he's lost half the car. That's a huge impact. So Ugochukwu, looking like he had the pace to potentially challenge for the win here today, throws it at the scenery. And further on up, you just saw there Delatraz and Kirkwood and Pagenaud battling for position. Meanwhile, Magnussen showing he's definitely got the pace that he had in the sprint race. And he, as I say that, sets the fastest lap of the race. So he's gradually going to coast up onto the back of Mostert, Kirkwood and Pagenaud. There's Delatraz, you can see, battling with Tsunoda for 5th position. Here's Buemi, still unable to find a way through on Sandy Stuvik. Here's Jake Dennis, pretty much in a bit of a lonely 4th position at the moment, finds himself a little over 3 seconds. As Pagenaud's dropping down the order. What's happened to Pagenaud? Something has happened to Pagenaud, and he's out. He's dropped out of the top 15. He's spun. He's done exactly the same as what a few people have already done. Luckily for him, the car is intact for the moment. Still unable to find a way through, as you see René Rast going through, so pretty much Pagenaud is dead last. Here's Danny Juncadella coming under pressure now from Scott Dixon. And Tanvadesco, and Tsunoda's off into the wall, and he's lost his front wing and a wheel as well. They're dropping like flies. There really isn't much grip, it seems. So another casualty to the barriers of Mexico, as you can see, not much runoff space. But here is the front. Hansen no longer feeling any pressure from behind. He's got about 10 seconds over Van Gisbergen. Here is Sebastian Buemi, who's trying to find a way through. He's found a way through on Stubik. Now he's battling with Palou for 12th. He looks to have, as Kirkwood sends it down the inside of Delatraz and nearly takes him out. And in an attempt to rejoin it, nearly takes out Magnussen, who is on a charge. Up to 6th position now is Magnussen. At one point in this race, I don't think he was outside of the top 15. So Magnussen lining him up for a move down into the Perotada. He's alongside, and has he made the move stick? No, he hasn't. That's going to put him under pressure now from Kirkwood, who, as we've already seen, is not too shy of trying to make a move into turn 1. But Magnussen's going to try and do the first move, and down the inside of Delatraz he comes. And that is P5 for Magnussen. Meanwhile, there's a big accident going on. Now, there's a car off in the wall there. Didn't quite catch who it was. But this is Will Power. And they were battling just outside the top 15. With one of the Team Germany cars. This is Shane Van Gisbergen, who's sat best part of 10 seconds off of the lead battle. He's got Dennis not too far behind. Here's Kirkwood trying to find a way through on Delatraz. Not able to make the move stick, but he's going to have a good run now. Down the start-finish straight, he's in the slipstream. Kevin Magnussen sets another fastest lap of the race. C on board with Delatraz, and I was expecting to see, and there you go, the Jaws music was definitely playing as Kirkwood goes through. And it seems as though those struggles in the early laps, as the fuel begins to burn off, that car of Kirkwood seems to be working a lot better now. Estra is going to be the first to pull the trigger, and so he's potentially going to find himself on a 2-stop strategy here. And so is Magnussen. But where is that going to feed the pair of them out? So Estra into pit lane, and so Hansen continues, potentially for another few laps. as the rest of the field streams through the Pirotada. There's Shane Van Gisbergen, he's taken second position now. Dennis has gone through as well. Stoffel Van Dorn goes off into the wall now. That's a big shunt. And also, who's that in the background? That was one of the... I think that was Nick de Vries who's just gone flying off. And there's cars everywhere through this final corner. It looks as though, is de Vries still going, or is he out as well? De Vries carries on. He's going to cut across into pit lane. Now I'm not sure whether or not that's allowed, but into the pit lane he comes. Van Dorn, I believe, is out. He is showing his out. Whilst all that was going on, Estra has filtered out in 7th position as there's more yellow flags out through the Pirotada, so I don't know if anyone else has gone off. They've gone back in. Hansen leads. It has nearly 12 seconds over Shane Van Gisbergen, has got 12 seconds over Shane Van Gisbergen. Jake Dennis finds himself in 3rd. Delatraz pits from 5th. So too does Kobe Ashi. Here's Christian Lundgaard trying to find a way through, and does find a way through at the Pirotada. So that was through on Robin Freins. Here's Sebastian Buemi, who's like everyone else, searching for grip but not really finding much. So Shane Van Gisbergen carrying on in 2nd, and so too has Hansen, although as I say that, he's just pulled into pit lane, and so also is Van Gisbergen. So Dennis is going to take the lead. Remember, Estra, who was our race leader, is down in 6th position. And Magnussen came out in 13th. So not ideal. Dennis, Kirkwood and Mostert is your current top 3. Hansen comes out, almost comes out in front of Estra. They are both on the start-finish straight together. Hansen with some tyres that are a few laps younger, so he's going to have a little bit of a tyre offset to the Frenchman. So, Team England doing a split strategy here. They've had Hansen pit relatively early, but Dennis is going to carry on in the lead, although he's got Kirkwood for company just behind. Meanwhile, here's Christian Lundgaard with what looked to be a fairly lazy Denmark car as there's yellow flags out, so something else has happened up ahead. So Enzo Time Van Itzkel comes in, and so does Scott Dixon. But still, Dennis and Kirkwood continue on. Mostert a little bit further back. But here's the battle for the net race lead. Potentially Estra and Hansen. And a second separate them. It was 1.9 before the pit stops. Now, back at the front, Dennis definitely under pressure now from Kirkwood. Is Kirkwood going to have a go into the final corner? I think he is. But is he going to make it stick? No, not quite, as we go to Lundgaard going off again! Lundgaard goes off, loses the front wing, and this has been a day to forget for the Danish driver. So he will pot around to the pits again. Sebastian Buemi pits from P6 as we look back to the front. Dennis under increasing pressure now from Kirkwood. Still managing to hang on. Here is Estra, now up into 4th. They're not making massive inroads. It's about 5 seconds, or just under 5 seconds, to Mostert and Estra. Hansen still staying fairly close to the Frenchman. But there is potential by how early they've pitted. These two may have to pit again, and Lundgaard struggling to get into pit lane there. Almost as if the car is conking out, and Kirkwood pits. So I think Kirkwood briefly took the lead, potentially. I'm not sure if that's because of the pit entry. But Kirkwood is in, Dennis continues. Mostert also carries on into second position. Estra and Hansen, the battle that we can see now. So just under a second that separate these two. Further on back here is Shane van Gisbergen on some new tyres now. And he is going down the inside of Kirkwood, who's just came out of pit lane now. Kirkwood with some fresher rubber tries to run it around the outside. In the background there you had, I think, what looked to be the two Danish cars going side by side, as Sandy Stuvik has to pull in with a gearbox failure. So out of the race he goes, retires from a top 10 position. So unlucky there for Team Thailand. They still have Enzo Tarn, who's within the points, although not too far up. Mostert and Dennis are in the pit lane, although they're showing as though Mostert may have gone in front of Dennis. It might have something to do with the pit position where the pit box is. But Estra and Hansen retake the lead. Just under 9/10 separate these two. Here's Kirkwood, who's come out in front of Dennis. Dennis now under pressure from Delatraz. I think Delatraz is going to go down the inside, so not ideal for Dennis, who now finds himself a few positions back from Kirkwood. But Magnussen has managed to slot his way into P5. So Kirkwood in plenty of clean air now. As Hansen's trying to make a move down the inside of Estra, but that's not quite worked out. But it's going to be within the slipstream. As down the inside, Magnussen tries a move there on Van Gisbergen. I'm not sure if he's managed to make it stick, but that's going to put him under pressure now. Although that's his teammate and already a lap down. Magnussen's going to be hoping that Lundgaard doesn't get involved here. A warning that Kirkwood is very quick, but he has got 12.5 seconds to bridge, albeit he did pit later, and we may potentially see Estra and Hansen in for a pit stop towards the end of this race. Van Gisbergen now under pressure from Delatraz for P4, and he finds himself with Magnussen just behind that. Dennis is now starting to catch up onto this group, but Magnussen's got the tail gunner of Lundgaard, who is actually, as I said, a lap down, and he's not really making life easy for Dennis there. And Magnussen goes out wide. Oh, he just about saves it, but someone who hasn't just saved it is Enzo Tarn, who's in the barriers again. And he's got to wait for half the field to come through before he can carry on. And we didn't quite get to the bottom. Oh yeah, we did see what happened to Pagenaud. Pagenaud obviously spun, and you can see he's recovering. Hansen in the slipstream of Estra, still not quite found a way through on the Frenchman. And here is Delatraz trying to pull a move on Van Gisbergen, but unable to find a way through there. But these guys have managed to pull away now from Magnussen. On board now with Estra, as you can see from the graphic, as Enzo Tarn, I think, has finished the job now. No, he's still going. And Dixon's now spun. So Dixon falls out of the top 10. Whilst one driver is complaining about the car, the other driver finds himself in a possible race for the podium. Tarn's still going somehow. And here is the battle for that P4, but in the middle of it all is Christian Lundgaard, who doesn't seem to be getting out of the way of anyone. But here is Dennis, who's going to try down the inside of Mostert. He also goes down the inside of Delatraz. They're 3 abreast through turn 1. 8th to 5th in one overtake, potentially the move of the season, as you can see there. And Magnussen trying it down the inside of Delatraz. Magnussen definitely isn't going to be particularly happy with how things are going now. He was showing the pace that he had in the sprint race, but is just stuck in traffic, and it just doesn't seem to be working out for him. So through the S's we go. Chaz Mostert finds himself in 6th position. This is a better showing from the Australian. Meanwhile, teammate Power outside the top 15. So Dennis in the slipstream of Van Gisbergen. He's going to try and take this P4 away. He's definitely got a fairly slippery car in a straight line, does Dennis. And he is closing on the New Zealander. Is he going to be close enough for a move? He dives down the inside. No, he wasn't quite close enough this time round. Delatraz still hanging on there in front of Magnussen. And whilst all that's been going on, Mostert's now crept up onto the back end of Dennis. And whilst all this has been going on, we didn't quite see it, but Magnussen's been overtaken by his teammate. So Lundgaard, who, as I've already said, is a lap down on all this, shouldn't really be getting involved, as that looks as though Rast having a complete lock-up and a spin. Spins it, oh, right in front of Pagenaud, and that's not the safest of rejoins there by Rast. Loses his front wing in the process. So that promotes Pagenaud into P15. Here's Carl Kirkwood, who has been motoring where Estra and Hansen, and actually Hansen's taken the lead now. So whilst everything else has been going on, Hansen takes the lead off of Estra. Kirkwood has closed by around 3 seconds to these two, whilst these two have been squabbling. but it's a lot of work for Kirkwood. Can Estra stay close enough to still challenge against Hansen? It seems as though Hansen is definitely quicker through the S's, and it could be that Estra finds himself outside that crucial 1 second margin. Further on back here is Kirkwood, who's nearly 9 seconds off the back end. And it looks as though Dixon has had another accident and he is out. So, yellow flags in the sector. Meanwhile, battle at the front. Estra managed to stay just within a second of Hansen this time around. Here's Jake Dennis, who's through on Van Gisbergen now, and Van Gisbergen's under pressure from Chaz Mostert. And that car just behind him is Lundgaard. So Lundgaard's gone through on Delatraz now. I'm sure Delatraz will not be happy about that. In fact, Delatraz goes back through on Lundgaard, but this is costing everyone valuable time involved, including Magnussen. I'd be interested whether or not there'll be some sort of steward's inquiry for unsportsmanlike conduct. As down the inside goes Buemi. Or does he? Lundgaard fights back. And he's still fighting Buemi. Buemi has pretty much almost gone an entire sector almost, side by side with Lundgaard. He will not relinquish that. And Lundgaard's just going to try up the inside of Buemi. Buemi definitely not happy with that. Kirkwood, in the meantime, gradually closing on the top two. And here comes Lundgaard again, trying to repass Buemi, and Buemi will be furious, but manages to stay ahead of Lundgaard. But here's Hansen, who's managed to open up that gap to Estra. He stayed out a bit longer, and that was all crucial to the tyre life. Kirkwood's closed by about another second and a half this time around. Now, Magnussen, who's now no longer has his pesky teammate to deal with, can now go about his business, and this time he's going to try and pass Delatraz. Unable to do it this time around, but he's had a decent exit out of the Pirotada, and he's managing to slipstream past Delatraz. Just in the background you've got Kamui Kobayashi, who's potentially going to join in on the party, and Magnussen having 2 stabs at it. And down the inside, the Danish driver comes, and back at the front still, Hansen leading, gradually pulling away there from Estra. And Van Gisbergen has a problem with the engine, so out goes Van Gisbergen, you see there. And it's a double retirement for New Zealand. So here is Danny Juncker, who goes up into the top 10 now. He's got well, Pascal Wehrlein's the next car on the road, but he's got one of the Team Thailand cars just behind him now. Here's Lundgaard. There's Kobayashi. Kobayashi closing now on Delatraz for 7th position. Magnussen's cleared off. Carl Kirkwood continuing to close on the lead. Is he going to have enough laps? Are the likes of Hansen and Estra going to run out of tyres towards the end of this race, or are they going to have a last-minute pit stop? You just about see Kirkwood in the background there. Estra gradually losing touch with Hansen. And there you can see the third car in view is Kirkwood. The gap is now down to 7.5 seconds between himself and Hansen, which works out at about 6 seconds between himself and Estra. So 30 laps completed of the 36. 6 to go. Well, can Kirkwood do it? He's running out of laps, but the guys in front are running out of tyres. So across the right line here is Astro, loses another 10th. To Hansen, and here is Kobayashi, who's actually coming under pressure now from Lundgaard, I think. So Lundgaard's come back through on Boemi and has gone off up the road again and is now pestering Kobayashi. And he is continuing to frustrate and be a hindrance to everyone else's race, it seems. But for 5th position now, Magnussen has got another target. And this target now is Chaz Mostert. And Charles Weerts, who was in for a point, has to retire with a gearbox failure. We've not had too many mechanical failures in this race compared to the others, although plenty have crashed out. Down the inside comes Magnussen, but he's not quite close enough, although he may still be close enough to have a move. As Delatraz is retiring, I think. No, they're going to box. So into pit lane comes Delatraz. But meanwhile, Magnussen down the inside of Mostert takes P5, and he's close enough and has enough laps he may be able to chase down Dennis for P4. Meanwhile, Kirkwood, 4.1 seconds it is between Hansen and Kirkwood, and nearly 2 seconds between himself and Estra as Lundgaard continues to harass Kobayashi in 7th. And this is allowing Boemi to catch up to the pair of them, which Kobayashi will very much not appreciate. But on board with Kirkwood, you can see the car in front is Kevin Estra. And just in front of him is Hansen. Are we going to have enough laps as Lundgaard still tries to find a way through on Kobayashi? Kobayashi going on the defensive, and you can see in the background, that's Buemi. Lundgaard swarming over the back of him. Meanwhile, here is Kevin Magnussen, and he's not too far away from Dennis, like I said. Just over a second away from the English driver. So he is managing to hang on. Meanwhile, up front, it's down to 0.6 of a second between Estre and Kirkwood, with 2 laps remaining. But here is the battle for P4. Dennis defending from Magnussen. Magnussen going to try and go for the outside. He switches to the inside, but he's not close enough, is he? He's going to have another look. No. It just seems as though that Team Denmark car seems to be rapid in clear air, but just doesn't have the straight line pace to make the move stick. As Enzo Tan once again off into the barriers. Simon Pagenaud, who's had an eventful day, but he's found his way back up into 12th. As they come through the yellow flags in the background. There's Kirkwood all over the back end of Estre. He's not going to be close enough to challenge Hansen for this win, unfortunately, but he can definitely get P2. Down the inside he goes, but not going to work this time around. That's going to affect his exit out of the final corner, but he's still close enough to Estre. I think he can get the move done down into turn 1. Estre goes on the defensive. He's going to go around the outside, but is he going to swap to the inside? Yes, he does. But again, not close enough, and he's running out of time now, is Kirkwood. P3's good, but P2 would be even better. Meanwhile, Dennis still under pressure from Magnussen. Magnussen takes a different approach this time around. He dips in, he dives back out, he goes down the inside, and that's P4 for Magnussen. So Estre once again hanging on in front of Kirkwood. Through the S's they go once again. And round the final corner they go as one of the cars in the barriers there, but it's going to be a win for Hansen. And here comes Estre. He hangs on in front of Kirkwood to take P2. The comeback was definitely on, but Kirkwood needed a few more laps there. As some of the back markers come through. Magnussen side by side there with, I think that was who we saw in the barriers earlier. Mostert comes through to finish P6. Here's a battle going on here, still. Across the line comes Kobayashi, followed by Buemi, but again Lundgaard staying involved. And who's this coming around with only a front wing? One of the Team Thailand cars, I think that's Enzo Tan. Delatraz and Pagenaud across the line. We wait for Robin Freins, who's the last driver on the lead lap. Across the line. But there is your race winner. Confirmation, Philip Hansen wins here the Division 1 Mexico City feature race ahead of Kevin Estre and Kyle Kirkwood in third. Kevin Magnussen came through eventually to finish P4 ahead of Jake Dennis, and Chaz Mostert was 6th ahead of Kamui Kobayashi. Sebastian Buemi was 8th ahead of Pascal Wehrlein, and Daniel Yonkadea rounds out the top 10. Louis Delatraz managed to come back to finish 11th ahead of Simon Pagenaud, and Robin Freins was 13th. moving down the order. Will Power 14th, just inside the points ahead of René Rast in 15th. Nick de Vries, who was the one that we saw in the barriers earlier, finished 16th ahead of Christian Lundgaard, and Enzo Tan finished 2 laps down. We go into the retirements, and there were a few. Charles Weerts, Shane van Gisbergen, Scott Dixon, Sandy Stuvik, Stoffel van Dorn, Alex Palou, Yuki Tsunoda, and Yugo Ugochugwu. And after a very dramatic weekend, I'd probably say, can we do that every weekend? But we're off to another race next time out, and I'll hand you back over to Chris, who will give you the lowdown on all the final scorings as we end this weekend.
Congratulations to Philip Hansen. What a fantastic drive, and a repeat winner at Mexico. He must like the place. And again, a brilliant drive from Kevin Estre and Carl Kirkwood on good form of late. Well done to them. And Kevin Magnussen, you got to feel sorry for him. He definitely had the power and definitely had the car underneath him, but just couldn't get things going. What a fantastic and chaotic race once again, with some disappointing out performances, especially for the Kiwi outfits. Very unlucky for them to have a double retirement in the feature. But we can now see what the standings looks like, and it is very, very close. Kevin Estre leading the way on 86, with Nick de Vries now in second place with 84 points. Carl Kirkwood now jumps up to third in the standings with 82. Philip Hansen in 77th, Alex Palou, Shane van Gisbergen and Pascal Wehrlein all on 74 points, just 12 back from Kevin Estre. What a close battle this is going to turn out to be. And the two Danish cars now, Lundgaard in top 10 and Kevin Magnussen in 12th. Very, very interesting for sure. But there'll be drivers like the Belgian cars really need to get things going. Stoffel van Dorn on 52, but he would love to try and get a result closer to the top end of the field. And definitely much like Scott Dixon, who just had a rotten bit of luck of late. Same with Pagenaud, but at least he's had a good sprint finish this round. And we can see what the standings it looks for the nations in Division 1. And I cannot believe what I am seeing. It is from 1st to 9th, all within 8 points of each other. Spain leading the way on 125, Denmark 124, France 122, New Zealand 120, England 120, Australia 120, Switzerland 199, Netherlands 199, and Germany 117. I cannot believe. I can't think of many situations where you see standings like this halfway through the season. It almost feels weird to say that Japan are really far away from P1, but they're not, only on 19 away. It just goes to show that anything can happen this season. And that is round 7, done and dusted. We now move on to round 8, which is going to be in La Plata, Argentina. Same day, same time, in a fortnight's time. And it's going to be a good laugh there. That circuit's a very fast speed circuit. Similar characteristics, I could say, to Mexico, just a little bit quicker. But yeah, anything can happen. But until then, thank you so much for watching. I've been Chris Cavalier, your host. Ryan Ferris has been your commentator. And this is the Nations Cup, signing off.